Good afternoon, everyone. Joseph Womack, pastor of the Savannah First SDA Adventist Church. Good to see you today. You might wonder where I am. I'm in my own home, up in my office, in this colorful chair that we somehow got and didn't really like it downstairs, so it ended up in my office. So there you go. Anyway, I am working at home today because the church is very loud with repairs. As I mentioned to you, we have in a process of renovating and recreating the church sanctuary. So there are people up in the ceiling banging and scaffolding, and so I just thought it best to be here today, and I wanted to get this video put together. So here I am. So hello to you. We have been living through some turbulent times lately that have caused me to rethink my own life, my own existence, my own focus and what's important, and how I have lived a very privileged life and how I want to change that and work on my serve. I don't mean tennis, I just mean work on how I serve other people and how my eyes and ears are open to seeing the cries of people who maybe not even crying out in words, but they have just lived a life of separation and of less than me and not had all the privileges that I have had. So we've been going through in church this sermon series that I'm calling Advice from Dr. Luke. Stories from the book of Luke. Luke was a doctor, and it's interesting the way he looks at people and the way he talks about the healings that Jesus did. And so there's an interesting story that I'm going to share with you, actually read to you from Luke chapter 5. And it's about a leper. Now, a leper back then, that word was used probably for people who might have suffered a few different skin diseases. In fact, if you ever read it in the Bible and it says he suffered from leprosy, there's generally a little footnote. And if you look in the bottom, it says, leprosy probably meant more than one kind of skin disease. Now it's interesting, if you read some of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, people will say, look at all the stuff that's in there. Why did God put all that in there? Because God was trying to create a people. And so he said to Abram, who later became Abraham, I'm going to make a people from you. You're going to be the father of all these people. And then those people ended up in Egypt as slaves. And then because of Moses, he led them out of Egypt into the promised land, which Moses never made it, and Joshua did that. But as soon as they got to the foot of Mount Sinai, God gave them the Ten Commandments. He gave them rules to live by, to be a civil people. And then in much of the other books of the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, you find laws, especially in the book of Leviticus, you find laws to live by. Some of them are about foods to eat. If you ever know about or have followed the clean and unclean animals, those weren't given as a test to people to see if you would be good or bad. They were given out of love. God gave foods. Here are some foods that are okay to eat. They're clean. Here's some foods that are not really okay to eat. They're not meant to be eaten. They are unclean. And those foods are always clean or unclean throughout the Bible. And even now in the time, if you follow those food laws, they are designed to give you optimum health. God gave rules about childbirth and what to do with sickness, where to go to the bathroom. He was trying to set up a people so they would be healthy, because God cares about all of us, all parts of us. One part of that was if you had leprosy, if you had skin disease. And so it says in Leviticus 13, when someone has leprosy, the leprous person who has the disease shall wear torn clothes and let the hair of his head hang loose, and he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. So because this disease was contagious, God was saying the person needs to look the part. They need to look unclean. They need to be identified by the way they look, that they aren't in good health, that they are, quote, unclean. And then also they should announce that they are unclean, and they should live alone. and their dwelling shall be outside the camp. So as long as you had this disease, you were required to live away from God's people. You were required to live alone. You were required to look a certain way so that people could identify you by the way you looked right away that you weren't in good health. And you had to shout, unclean. Now imagine what that would be like to live like that, to live less than the other people around you, to not be with the people of God. To look the part and to act the part would be a slow, solitary, lonely experience. And it could lead to death if you were not cured. So that's the context for how people looked at that. And as time went on, people looked at sickness as a sin. And that if you were blind, if you had leprosy or something, you must have done something wrong and you were being punished for your sins. And I'm sure there are people, you or me or others listening to this now, who have thought at some point, God is punishing me for something that I did, or some thought that I had, or my parents' sin passed down from the children to the children to the children. And so we look for reasons why they're suffering. So imagine what it would be like to be a leprous person. So this is the context in which this man comes to Jesus. And this is in Luke chapter 5, verses 12 through 16. It says, while he, meaning Jesus, was in one of the cities, there came a man full of leprosy. That's what Luke the doctor says. This man is full of leprosy, totally covered with it. Just his life, his body is engulfed in it. He doesn't have a minor case. He has a full-blown case of leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face as an act of worship, as an act of reverence, as an act of respect, and he begged him, Lord, even to use that word shows respect. Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. So the man wasn't saying, I wonder if you can. He was saying, I know you can, if you will. It's like, I know you can do this, but if you will do this for me, please make me clean. Make me whole. Make me without this suffering. Make me without this disease of leprosy. And there might be times when you have wondered if you were talking to God, Lord, I don't know if you care about me, but if you would you hear this prayer? If you would you care for my life? If you would you care for my children or my aged parents? If you would, can you heal our land? We know that he can, but will he? We wonder if he cares. And that seems to be the cry of this leprous man. Lord, if you will, would you heal me? Make me clean. And then it says in verse 13, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him. It's a very important point. If you touched someone with leprosy, it made you unclean. Therefore, you did not touch anyone with leprosy. So when Jesus touches the man, he is identifying with this man. He is saying, you are important to me. I am physically willing to touch you. I'm willing to put my life in touch with your life to bring healing to you. In the same way that Jesus took on flesh and came to this earth and became one with us, he's willing to even take one leprous man and show him that he cares. Imagine how long it had been since this leprous man might have touched someone, might have been around people. He was in the city. He shouldn't even have been there. He should have been outside the camp, outside the city. That's how desperate he was. He should have been out in the valley of the lepers. And so Jesus touched him and he said, I will. The man said, if you will heal me, Jesus says, I will. Be clean. And the word there means to be healed. And immediately the leprosy left him. So it was a touch of Jesus that led this man to find healing. You know, imagine how that man's life was changed after that. To go from being unclean, to go from being alone, to go from being outside the camp, to go from looking hideous, to dressing isolated, to having to shout unclean, unclean, to now being healed, to be able to rejoin society. And this is what I find the Spirit of God and the touch of God can do to a person's heart, to a family, to a church, to a workplace, even to our country, to our world. It might not ever happen in this world. It might not ever happen in this country that there is healing, but we can certainly strive for it. We don't want to say, well, the world is going to be like this until Jesus comes again. I'm just going to do what I can. We need to strive to reach out to those who are less fortunate than us. We need to strive to make the lives of other people better, to lift people up and not be so comfortable in what we have, but look at those who don't have as much as us and say, why don't they have as much as me? Maybe I can share, maybe I can help them, to lift up the people. You know, I'm not a boater, but people say that when the tide comes in, all the boats rise up. And that's the truth. If you do better, then in a sense I am doing better. If I do better and we all do better, then life itself becomes better. There's more health, there's more healing, there's more love in the world. So we find Jesus once again willing to bring healing, willing to bring peace, willing to bring love to a situation. So I invite you to open your eyes anew today, this week. Look for people in situations that are less than what they could be. Strive to make an individual life or our society in general better. Let's not be silent. Let's speak up when we see injustice. Let's strive to make everyone's life better, whether you are affected by it or not. Don't let your privilege as a person of where you live or how much money you have affect how you reach out to those around you who don't have as much as you. Life is about all of us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, Jesus. He so loved the world. He didn't just love one particular people or one particular nation. God so loved the world that he gave. And that's what he calls you and me to do, to give, to open our hands, to let go of the possessions that we're holding on to, and to bring love in and to let love go out. Freely you have received, freely give. Strive to be that way this week, my friends. God bless you, and we'll talk to you later.